Okay, today we're going to have a look at 1812, Napoleon's Fateful March, a new game from Vuca, designed by Brian Asklev. This is an interesting game. It's an operational scale game, basically, which you don't always see a ton of in Napoleonic games. There's several scenarios in the box. The entire campaign there and back, but also a few scenarios cutting it up into smaller chunks. I intend today to just kind of give a bit of an overview of how it looks, what it looks like, and how it looks. So first, let's have a look at a few of the counters. Here's French infantry counters, French just combat counters, I guess. We have infantry and cavalry, they look pretty good. As always with Vuca quality components, come pre-rounded and all that. And then here we look at the Russian units, and they look pretty good as well. You have cavalry, Cossacks, and infantry. But the only trouble I had with the counters was that in terms of the French ones, all the French infantry look the same, including there's just a handful of there's two other nationalities. There's I can't remember what they were, but anyway, there's one has a little tiny mark with a white flag with a black dot, and another one has a little flag with red and yellow. You can see there, and man, those are, when you're trying to sort out the counters and set up the game, those are tricky to find. This game, it's not a card-driven game. Well, I guess it is sort of a card-driven game. We've got the here you can see we got the classic cards with ops up in the upper right corner, and events along the main text of the card. You also see in the upper right some of the events are for, or some of the ops are strictly for, or the card is for combat. Sometimes the card is for maneuver, different things like that. So not all cards are just are strictly universal. Some are meant for one phase of a game or another. The other thing about this game is you have a lot of hidden information. Each leader in the game has its own little screen. I'll get a close-up of these, but on the back of the screen, you can see the any special abilities that particular person has. You can see Napoleon. Napoleon has quite a few special abilities, where Jerome Bonaparte has almost nothing. The way these work is you place the leader on the board. Here's a Napoleon counter, for example. You put the leader on the board, but you put all the units that are with him behind that little screen, so your opponent doesn't know what units any particular leader has. The other interesting thing about this game that relates to hidden information is this game is orders driven. Each side will get a variety of a certain number of orders that they can play each turn. And the orders, we use these little blocks here. This is the French, the hidden side, and then you can see this is a forage order, for example, and you can see that on the upside. And so the French player will get a handful of these, and some of them I don't have one in my hand here, but some of them will say dummy on the side as well. But here we have a forage, a march, a forced march. We have you know, a few different, and of course the Russian player has the same thing but in green. And of course the one other interesting thing is the orders available to the two sides are not strictly asymmetrical. The French orders are slightly different than the Russian orders. Both sides have 4 of those dummy blocks. And what's going to happen during the course of the game is each player will have a certain amount of orders that they can put out each turn, and they'll put them out, but they'll put them out facing facing their opponent, so their opponent can't see. And then during the game, there's a certain order that all the orders get revealed in, and so you'll look at, say, all the forced marches first, and any forced marches have to be flipped up, and then you have to do them or not, and so on. So there's quite a game of cat and mouse and bluffing with these order blocks. I should also note that there's 2 different kinds of leaders. I'll get a picture of the other kind in a bit, but the leaders that I've decided to use for this demonstration, just because I have a lot of top-down shots, are these regular little square ones. But they also the game also comes with longer standees, and you can put the standees upright, and they're totally good looking. I just didn't think it if we're moving things around the board a little bit, I thought it would be easier to see the leaders from a top-down point of view. So I think that's all the components. We have a fairly a decent-sized board here. It runs from basically Moscow in the upper right corner over to Riga in the top left, and then we have these boxes along the left-hand side for units coming in from Prussia or Warsaw or Austria. You can see across the bottom we have what do we have? Lutsk, well, Moldavia, Ukraine. Again, those are kind of incoming boxes. But you can see the map is fairly attractive. It's and it's a point-to-point map, but handily they've you can see an EF there, and along the side we have 1, 2, 3. So when you're initially setting up the game, you can see the if you don't know where say I don't know, Orsha is, it'll tell you that it's in E3, and you know, there's Orsha. So it's a big help that way. Here's a look at the screens, and then from the back side, here's the French ones. I'll just let me move this out of the way here, and you can see here's Napoleon's screen, and you can see he has quite a stack of units there. So yeah. Okay, let's take a look at how some of this works. As always with Vuca games, the components are one step beyond. These are the player aids, and you can see, rather than just being you know, heavy paper or light cardboard, they're printed on the same thickness as the counters are. So they're quite I don't know, they're just deluxe, right? That's Vuca's signature. Anyway, the game, you know, once you've got everything started up, you've picked your scenario, set up all the pieces. The game, each turn starts with a resources phase, where if it's not on the first turn, you're gonna get some replacements, things like that. You can, if it's not the first turn, you might discard some of your cards that you don't want from previous turns. But then what happens is there's a little chart. Maybe it's I guess it's in the rule book. Then we start to draw cards for the next turn, and there's maybe we can see it right there. I don't know, but depending on which month it is, the Russian gets to choose one of 2 cards for depending on the month, and the French, depending on the month, gets to choose one of 2 cards I hope you can see that. Anyway, they get to do that. You get to take one of those, and then each player randomly takes two other cards. So at the start of the game, you're going to start out with 1 or 0 of the specified cards for that month. If you don't want either of them, then you get to pick 3 cards. But if you pick one of those 2 special cards, you then draw 2 random cards. And then we start. And the first thing you do is draw yet another card into your hand. And if that's just another random card. And then we're going to start the turn. And so each player will then have 4 cards. It just feels a little strange on the first turn, but that all feels kind of normal on subsequent turns. So once you've got your hand, you've drawn your extra card. It's important to know who has initiative each turn. Each scenario will start with one person or another having initiative. It's just on the board here. There's a little initiative marker, and depending on winning or losing battles, that initiative marker is going to move back or forth or flip, and the other player may have initiative. Anyway, as long as you know who's got initiative, then the first thing that happens is you can play a card to get additional orders this turn. So you can spend one of your cards. Each player puts a card face down. Each player also has, in addition to their the deck of the hand of cards that they just had, which puts us initially at 4. Each player also has some dummy cards, so you can play a dummy card to get an additional order, or play a real card, and that's going to give you more of those little order blocks that we talked about earlier, right? You'll get to choose more of those. Anyway, each player then reveals to say whether they get additional orders or not, and once they've figured out how many orders each one gets, each player secretly takes, they get their little their bag or whatever, their full complement of orders, and then they choose out, of course they got their 4 dummy markers, and then they choose out however many orders they get as was determined in that first phase. Both players have their orders, and then the game gives you a couple of options like this. It's the official rule is first the non-initiative player will place 1 order, then the initiative player, then back and forth all the way. But there's an optional rule to speed up play, to just both of you put out all your orders. It's probably not really going to make a big difference to see who plays how many orders where. If you think it's really going to make that big of a difference on this turn, then do it the 1-by-1 phase. Now, it's important to know that when you place one of these orders, that's the side that you can see, and you're going to stand it upright, and so all your opponent is going to see is your flag side. And the other thing is the orders can only be placed in places where you have SPs. So, it can go there, say. It's also important to note that the orders, they have to be placed somewhere where you have SPs, but you can place an order that the units that you have in that particular place may not be able to execute that order, but you can place an order there thinking that earlier in the turn a unit that may be able to execute that order will be able to get there and execute the order. The other thing to know is you can put more than 1 order in with an SP or with in any one location. So you might have a forage order and a march order, or you might have a big stack of units, and you have a march order and a forced march order. And some of your units are going to go on forced march, some are just going to march, that sort of thing. Anyway, back and forth, both players place all their orders until the orders are all placed. And then it's time for order resolution. And order resolution has a very specific order. The orders are executed in the same order each turn. So well, you can see here, we start with the forced march, then we do the cavalry patrols, then we do the march, then evade, and then the battles, and so on. So the first thing is each player that reveals any of its extended march orders, and then they are resolved. It's also worth noting that if, say we're in the forced march order resolution phase, if there's multiple forced marches, both players reveal them, then the player with initiative says who has to resolve one of theirs first, and then they go back and forth. So if I'm the French and I say, you resolve yours first, the Russian player has to resolve one of his forced marches, then I resolve one of mine, back and forth until all the forced marches are done. And then we move on to, once all those are done, we move on to the cavalry patrols. And this order can only be, done, of course, by either cavalry or Cossacks. And there's not as many of those units, but there's a few on the board, not as many as the infantry, of course. And then we move on to the march orders. And of course, the march orders come after the forced march. So you're going to do all your forced marches two steps ahead of your marches. And again, this is all back and forth. And you can, as I said, if you have multiple SPs in a spot, one of them has to execute the order if possible. So if you had 4 SPs in a spot that had a march order and you really didn't want to move all of them out because of something your opponent did, you're going to have to move one, but you don't have to move all 3. Just as long as one executes the order, then you're going to be fine. Next up comes evade. Now there's several, each side has a few evade blocks, and you may have placed an evade block in a place where you were worried your opponent was going to move in to give you battle there, and you felt your side was not going to be able to stand up to whatever the opponent did. So if you have any of these evade orders, you're going to be able to move out of there before you get slaughtered in battle. After that, after all the evasions have been made, then it's time to resolve battles. And when you're resolving battles, that's the only time that these defend orders come into play, which will give you a little bit better defense, obviously, than if you don't have one of those orders on the units in that spot. You resolve all the battles. Then next we have rally, which is your chance. If you have any units under rally markers, it's going to be your chance to take them from their exhausted side and get them back on their fresh side. And then finally, we have 2 smaller ones. We have a block for the Russians only, Cossack raids. Let them do a little raiding, and then finally, both sides have this possibility of a block. Place a depot. You see all these little tiny green or blue blocks. Those are depots, and of course, those are important for supply and you want them, you want to get those strung out closer to where the action is as well. So placing depots, that's the very last thing. And then that's the last thing in terms of all the orders. We'll have moved some units, we'll have resolved some battles, evaded, defended, what have you. After all that's done, we have an attrition phase, and that's where the I don't know if I have one here. Oh yeah, that's where the forage comes in, because depending on the season and there's going to be some attrition in each area, and foraging will help you stave off some of that attrition. As we all know about Napoleon's march to Moscow, disease and malnutrition was probably just as harmful as battle losses on the way there and back. There was not a lot of living off the land. I should also mention how how you determine how many orders each side gets each turn. Now, each side gets 2 free orders each turn. As well, the French get a free forage order each turn, and the Russians get a free cavalry patrol order each turn. So each side starts off with 2 free orders plus 1 sort of predetermined one. As I mentioned earlier, at the start of each turn, you're allowed to play cards for extra orders. And in that case, these numbers in the upper right corner that longtime CDG players will think of as ops points, if you play one of your cards for extra orders, that's how many extra orders you get. So that's how you determine how many orders each side has per turn. Now I should also note that as I showed earlier, leaders may have special things, special abilities. Like Napoleon, he may change an order, to any order. So he can do things on the fly. He's also he gets a bonus in battle that's going to be helpful, things like that. So those special abilities of the leaders can be used at any time when appropriate. And then, as I showed earlier as well, some of these cards are going to have special abilities as well. Here's a card. It's going to give if you're in a battle, this card is going to give you a special ability in battle. The first 2 Russian infantry SPs to become exhausted immediately rally again. So that's a great card to play at the end of a battle. Or there's also cards. I'm seeing mostly movement cards here, but there's other cards that take place during the placement of the orders phase or different phases. So the cards are pretty self-explanatory in kind of showing you when and where you can place them, but don't get so focused on the board that you forget your hand, because the hand is a very important part of the whole procedure. Should have a quick look at how combat works in this game. I'll just put some pieces out sort of haphazardly just to kind of show what it might be like. But let's say we were fighting here and we had a few forces like this. Now, when we get to the during that orders execution segment, when we get to the battle time, this is when, as I said, any defend orders are placed. This is also this is where we resolve the battle. So the very first thing is if either player wants to play a battle card, they can, and that would affect. Well, the card will tell you what the specific effect is. Sometimes it gives you extra strength points. Sometimes it might give you just a special ability. Then the next thing you do is you count up the value of your units and see how strong you are. So we see here that the French have 3, and well, let's give the Russians another, and the Russians have 2. So it's 3-2 for the French. Then we roll these battle dice, and the battle dice are, let's let you see here. One is green, all green, and the other one is blue, but it's got a couple of special things. So the Russian has their own die, and the French have their own die as well. You roll these dice and add the Russian amount to the Russian combat value, and add the blue one to the French value. Now, the French, they have, see this, they have, this means they get a -1 if it comes up this side, only if it's a winter turn, whereas they're going to get a 4 on this die, but only if it's a summer turn. Both of these mean 0 if it's not winter or summer, and then the rest are like, add 2, add 3, -1 sort of thing. the Russians only a special one. I think that has to do with fortresses. Anyway, you roll the 2 die, add it to the values, and then you get to modify your the count a bit by a few things. Like infantry always counts as 1, but if you have special guard infantry, they count as 1.5. If you're using cavalry, they normally count as 1, but if you're in a fortress area, they only count as a half. And there's a few things like that. Cossacks count as 0 in these sorts of battles, things like that. Anyway, both sides roll on, and they'll get a number. Let's just have a look. We'll put it like this. Well, so in this case, we ended up with the French end up with 5 in total, and the poor Russians ended up with 0. We look at on our player aid card at the battle table here, and we'll see that on 0 to 2, the Russians inflicted 0 losses. 3 to 5, the French inflicted 1 loss. So whoever caused the most losses is the winner. The loser has to take that loss and retreat, and the winner can pursue and maybe cause some more losses. There's a chance for that as well. And then, well, actually, I think the pursuit comes before the retreat. The attacker can pursue to try and cause more losses. Then there's a retreat, and then depending on the losses, there's going to be a shift in the victory points, and so the victory scale is going to go up or down, and also, depending on how many losses, that might affect the initiative as well. So, at the end of the battle, you're gonna make all those adjustments, and then move on to the next battle. I should also say, I should say a word about attrition. So after we get, we've done all the movement, we've done the battles, then we've done some rallying, because as you can see, the infantry units and the cavalry units, they have a fresh side where they count as 1, or if this would count as this would be 10 infantry, but your average counter just counts as 1. But they can become exhausted, and you want to rally them from that state, because they're not as effective if they're exhausted. They don't count in your initial. You can't attack or defend with them very well. Anyway, so there's this attrition phase at the end, and the attrition depends on how many units you have in a certain area, and then how far they are from the nearest depot marker. So if you're close to a depot marker, you're gonna have less attrition than if you are far from then if you're out of, basically if you're beyond 5 movements from a depot, that means you're out of attrition, or you're out of supply, basically. I should also note that the attrition amounts is variable. Each time you get to the attrition phase, you roll 1 die, and just a regular 6-sider, you roll that, and there's a weather table, and depending on what you roll, there's going to be more or less, depending on the season and what you roll, there's going to be more or less attrition that turn. You take that, and you take the size of this column. This is the attrition table. You take the size of your units. Say you had 4 units, but there was +1 because it was the winter, so you're going to look at 5. You've got 5 units in an area, and then you look across. This is how far you are from a depot, and the number of Ds is well, that's the number. The numbers is how many attrition losses is suffered, and then the Ds are the number of devastation. You can see on if we look at the map here, you can see a place like this, we have a 1, 2, those are devastation levels. And those are going to affect your foraging ability. Now here's where the importance of the forage markers come in. If you have a forage order in an area, it reduces your number of attrition, the attrition points you have to take by 2. So if you were slated to take 4 attrition points, you only have to take 2 in that particular area. So that's where forage comes in, and that's basically it. That's a turn in 1812. There's basically 5 turns per year. Here we see there's a little turn track. I've set up one of the sort of medium scenarios here. You can see we're starting in August in the 3 space. That's where it says time, and then it goes right to the end. So we're going to go, that means this game has got, 1, 2, 3, 13, 18 turns in total. You do the whole order sequence for each one of these boxes. So once we're done there now, we're going to go to there, and we start the whole process over again, starting with the replacements, getting rid of any cards, redrawing cards, and having the special ones depending on what the season is, the special cards for each side. And away we go again, and back and forth. The battles determine as the VPs go up and down, and that's how it plays out. Okay, I think that's it. You play through all the turns. You're going to gain VPs, lose VPs. There's a VP track. It's green on one side and red, white, and blue on the other. As you gain, if it's green, if the French gain VPs, it just subtracts until it gets down to 0. Then you flip it over to the red, white, and blue and move it up if the French continue to rack up VPs, depending how the game goes. In the scenario that I was looking at, the game starts with the Russians at 7 or 8 VPs. So the game obviously intends for the French to make a fair amount of progress. The French have to get that 7 or 8 VPs just to get to even, and then they're going to have to score more if they want to win the game, because at the end of the game, whichever side is ahead on VP, if it's in the green or if it's in the red, white, and blue, that's the side that's going to win, and that's pretty much all there is to it. It's an interesting game from what I can see so far. I think the added fog of war here is what's really interesting. The only other games I can think of that have a similar fog of war in the Napoleonic space is Shaco's 1806, 1807, 1815 series. There, your units, you have the leaders on the board, and your units are hidden behind a screen as well. So it has the fog of war in terms of how strong each leader is. But 1812, Napoleon's Fateful March goes one further and adds in the hidden orders system, and that's going to, I guess it just feels like there's going to be a little more game in this game, for lack of a better way to put it. But I really look forward to that. I haven't played it opposed yet. I'm dying to. I think because of all that fog of war, it's not going to be a terrific game solo. So well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Dedicated solo players find a way to play pretty much anything solo. So, don't let me put you off this game that way. But it does have a fair bit of hidden stuff, which is not the solo player's best friend. That said, I really look forward to it. I didn't talk about it too much, but I'm really interested in how each of the leaders has their own unique special abilities, and some can do one thing, some can do another, and some can't do anything extra at all. But I think that's going to add a lot of flavor. And I think also, as I learn the 2 decks, there's going to be, well, I shouldn't say I'm going to learn them. I never play any game enough to really learn the deck, but as I play the game and start to experience the deck, I think that's going to be really exciting as well, to see what surprises the deck has in store. Anyway, there you go. That's 1812, Napoleon's Fateful March from Vuca Simulations. and designer Brian Asklev. And yeah, I hope you liked having a first look at this, an overview of the game, and I can't wait to see what everybody thinks of it and to actually play it, to pose and see how it goes. Thanks for watching and listening, and I'll talk to you next time.